Happy Monday. It's a beautiful Monday morning. We're edging up on Halloween here. So everybody should be looking forward to that. You may have noticed that I was busy this weekend doing things. There is a mock trial competition. High school kids from around the country, and there are 6 different countries that participated in this mock trial competition. But at our particular place, it's called Empire Mock Trials. They have mock trials in New York, Georgia, and San Francisco. And we had kids from 3 other countries: Canada, China, and one other country that I don't remember, and the US, obviously, come down. And the topic was pretty interesting. There was the topic of the trial. There's a initial hearing. It was a restraining order hearing. A speaker who they characterize as a white nationalist speaker. It was all fictional. It was based in a fictional state on fictional races, but essentially white national speaker who wanted to speak at a college, and the college wanted to charge him more than they charged other people because there's going to be a violent, or they anticipated a violent response to him speaking there. So there was the initial hearing was for the temporary restraining order to prevent them from charging him more money. And that was just all the kids did for that is they had one person from their particular side make a argument, and then the presiding judge would get to break in and ask them clarifying questions and things. And the kids did great on that. I had more issues with the form. They chose to go in and start explaining the various tests. You get 90 seconds to uninterrupted out of your 10-minute little speech. You get 90 seconds before the presiding judge can start interrupting you and asking you clarifying questions and things. My approach would have been to pack the substantive bits. Oh, hey, a skunk. Do not run after the skunk. Yeah. My approach would have been to ask the substantive bits in the first 90 seconds. But theirs was to explain the standards. Both sides did this, which I found, I guess if you don't know what to say, sometimes it's hard to start figuring out where to talk. But they recovered well, and they had a pretty good understanding of everything. So that was fun. And then it switched over to the person who was asking for the restraining order, temporary restraining order, was arrested for assault at the event. The idea was that either he got the restraining order or he found a wealthy benefactor to pay for the event security fees. But either way he sliced it, the event went ahead, and he ended up assaulting an EMP, which is, again, it's a fictional race. And it was all about pulling down a statue. That's what he was having the speech for, was against pulling down a statue that was on the college. And this fictional minority ran up to confront him, and he bopped him in the head with a microphone, and then allegedly bopped him in the head with a microphone, and then allegedly ran down the stairs and started stomping him. And the way the facts were set up, all the witnesses had they had points that you could attack on their understanding, or the professor had her glasses knocked off so she could only squint. There was a police officer who his testimony was that the lights were shining directly at him and he could barely see, but etc. Anyway, it was really fun. The kids did really well. And the goal of it was to give them a situation where you could argue either way, where it wasn't cut and dry. Basically just to teach them how to think in terms of understanding the statutes, understanding the case law, understanding the rules of evidence, the rules of procedure, all that fun stuff. It was a really good time. That's why I was in San Francisco. I had already signed up for that event before Earl released his little meter maid, his critical documentary on the abuses of the San Francisco Police Department in parking in red zones. Whew. Talk about the big issues. So it was merely a coincidence that I was going to be at that particular building. But yeah, that's why I was there. That's why I filmed it. The gruff voice you heard in the background is my boss. Yes, I did it with him. It's we did it together as an office. One of the other guys who works at the office, he was going to go, but his wife canceled for him. So it was just me and my boss, but it was still fun. The kids were great. They were phenomenal. There was a couple of kids who were scared. You could tell they were scared and very they're just petrified. They're just stuck in stone. But a couple of kids, they were from Pennsylvania, the team from Pennsylvania. My God, those kids were good. They could have been lawyers. They're high school kids. They could have been lawyers, like 17, 18-year-old. They could have been lawyers. If I had seen them in a courtroom making their arguments, I'd have been like, yeah, they're lawyers. Wouldn't have even blinked. The kid in the middle, he was like their anchor. He was a young man. My God, the guy had the best presentation, the best voice, he had really good understanding of the issues. He had a really good understanding of the facts. So one of the things that I look at is when the judge throws a question, because, you know, when you're as the presiding judges, we got all the facts and information. Not all the facts, but we got all the background. Case law, and you know, we've had the advantage of going through law school and passing the bar and all that other fun stuff. So we read it all and we understood where the fault lines were in the case. And you get a presiding judge asking you questions in the middle of your prepared, run through. It can throw you off. And so I look at recovery, and he just slid right back in. He integrated well. His cross examinations were great. He actually picked up on what the attorney on direct, the person portraying an attorney on direct was doing. Responded very eloquently to it. It was just really fun. So drove out there, did that, and then went to Napa, had dinner with the wife and her family, actually. So they got to meet my boss, and that was also a good time. But yeah, it was a fun weekend. So I didn't really have a whole lot of chance to go over any stupidity going on in the auditor world. I would like to point out that my whole trip cost nobody a dime, and I actually did go and educate kids on the First Amendment. What did you do this weekend, Mr. Auditor? Mr. Standing in front of a secretary screaming at the top of your lungs about your First Amendment right to film in that lobby. Perspective, I guess, is what it's all about. I was told that apparently yet again I'm confronted with somebody who beat a trespass charge. So therefore, my whole outlook on the way the law works is somehow wrong and mistaken because somebody beat a trespass charge. And I want to caution everybody before they instantly jump into believing that somebody beat a trespass charge. You haven't gotten to see anything. All you know is the person is still out. It's like when someone says they beat a traffic ticket, but the whole thing is that the cop who gave them the ticket didn't show up. So did they beat it? Sure, but did they beat it? Or was the cop a no-show? You know, questions like that. There's also pretrial intervention or pretrial diversion, or they have flavors. Every state has their own little flavor of it, if they have something like it. But you got to remember that that exists too. So you got to understand, a lot of times you're seeing someone back out. They may not be all the way back out. They may be on probation. I think isn't Freeman on some sort of a probation period right now? I think he is, for that Dallas case where he sent threatening messages or something like that across the internet. I think he's on probation. Anyway, so you can't always judge. People don't always win, and winning isn't always winning. And in reality, here's what an actual win would be. If you went into some place where I said that the policy was clear that you can't film, and you stood there and you filmed, and when the police came and they told you to leave, you said no. Now, this is not legal advice, just for the record. I'm not advocating you do this, because this will get you locked up. But if you stood there and you said no, and the police said leave or we'll trespass you, and you said no, and you stood there and you waited for them to actually arrest you, and then instead of allowing a charge to just disappear, if it does disappear, if you file a civil suit and you actually prosecute that civil suit the whole way, you don't settle for an undisclosed amount. Because settlements, I know people want to think a settlement is a win, and financially speaking, it may be a win, but a lot of times settlements come, I don't want to, one side's like, you know what, I just don't want to fight this. I'm going to spend more in attorney's fees than what you're asking for. And so here, take some money and just go away. It's not a win. So my non-legal advice, if you really want to prove that you are right and I'm wrong, is walk into the middle of a Social Security agency. Again, not legal advice. Stand there and film. Again, not legal advice. Wait for the cops to show up while you're filming. Again, not legal advice. Refuse to leave when you're told to leave. Again, not legal advice. And make the cops arrest you for doing what you're doing. Again, not legal advice. See if you win. See if you win the criminal case. Whether you win the criminal case or not, make sure you bring a civil case and prosecute that civil case to the end, to not a stipulation, not a settlement, but to an actual judge rendered or jury rendered decision that says you have an absolute legal right to do what you were doing. That would prove it. Anything beyond that is just nonsense. Anything beyond that is basically someone bragging that, you know, they got a speeding ticket and they didn't have to pay because the officer showed up. Or the officer didn't show up. Or maybe it's bragging that they sped and they didn't get a speeding ticket, therefore they can speed at will. It's stupid. It's not proof. And it's not very helpful either way. And also look at the person who's making the claim and look at how many times that person has been hemmed up, how many charges they have faced, how many times they have been found to be in violation of some sort of trespassing law or whatever. Monkey. Just look at how many times they did end up screwing the pooch and having to pay the price for it. So, anyway, everything's back to normal. I'll be doing my Ramblin while Amblins. And thanks for watching. Earl's a rapist, and have a great day.